Hi everyone, it's Debbie. I hope you're all doing really great today. I thought today, since I yesterday had posted this beautiful color mixing board, what I did is I used, if you're not interested in the supplies, you can just skip forward. I used a lot of my MeiLang reds, which I feel is so representative of autumn in this time of year. I love it. And I mixed it with both the golds and the bronzes, which actually are not in this kit. They are in, I recently decided I'd get this one, and it's all the MeiLang palette colors, which is a palette I have been using a lot of because it's a little bit more affordable for my everyday and volume of painting I'm doing. I really like it. It's grounded pigments with some fillers in there, but the colors are gorgeous and beautiful and vibrant, and it's really a creamy, fun paint to work with. So I invested in this other set with the metallics in it, and that's what I used here. So with that being said, I thought today it would be fun to paint some of these little, I wanted to share these with you because they're little fillers you can add into any of your bouquets or your wreaths you're doing, and they're kind of fun. I always, every year, look forward to doing these little acorns. Today I am using 140-pound cold press paper. This is brand new for me. As you know, I've been using the wonderful, my favorite Artisto little pads, which I love because, like in this instance, I'm going to keep this here and I can actually label this fall or color palettes and refer back to it. It's got this fun little ring binder, so it keeps them all together. But this is their full pages, 9 by 12. So I'm using that today just because it gives me a little bit more room to paint. And I kind of wanted to try out their bigger pieces of paper. So that's what I'm using today. I've got my 8 Velvet Touch Princeton brush, which I love. I also have here the 6. It's a little bit thinner, and if I want to do a fine line, I can't. For my beginners, love you guys, I have in the past, if you're not sure, you want to really invest in the Princeton brushes and things like that. I have been using these Degato brushes. Look at all these sizes that you get. So you get this whole set of round brushes from Degato, and it's really reasonable. What's great about this is, for me, my go-to is that size 8 brush. This gives you the opportunity to try them out, and I'm not affiliated with them or anything. I've just found this to be a great option with for the beginners. It gives you all the sizes, and it's a really good price point, so I'll link those for you. And I will also link, if you want to kind of dive into that Velvet Touch number 8, I've got that here for you too, so I'll link that. I've got my, as far as supplies, my 2 wells of water. Love my Meeden kit. It's just kind of cool and sleek looking. It's heavy, so I've had this happen before where my water tips over. This is great. It's very solid, made nice. It's all ceramic, and you have your wash side and your rinse side. So I love that. I've got my paper towel here just to dab off my brush if I need it, and then my MeiLang paints. All right, so we are ready to go. Let's play with some of these little autumn fillers, and I'm going to try and incorporate some of these fun colors here. So first, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to spray my paint to activate them. I usually do that before I start, but I didn't. So just spraying them. Spray these 2 in case I want to use these metallics. So that'll just sit for a minute, and it will they'll soften up, so I can go into them and go ahead and use those. All right, my palette today I'm using is also by Meeden. Love these guys. They have such quality palettes. I was previously using their really large one, which I loved, but really all I wanted was these mixing areas. So I bought their smaller one, and I love it because I can pick it up. I can use it in these demos. It's not too big, so I like it, but it's got a lot of room to mix, and I tend to use a lot of room to mix. All right, let's start here. I'm going to go ahead and wet my brush. Let's see if I can just move down a tad. So when I get my brush wet, I know you ask a lot about this, loading your brush and so forth. I typically load my brush with the water, and then I will just scrape off a few times, 2, 3, 4, 5, just to make sure I haven't got a huge amount of water in there. Now, of course, depending on how much water you've got in your paints, if you've got some puddles in your paints, that's going to make a difference. But I usually just give mine a quick spritz, and that's a good amount of water. Okay, let's start with, let's see, what do we want to start with? Let's start with these fun little berries. So I'm going to use a couple different colors. Let's see. I really like this color, which is their dark, this is MeiLang, dark magenta. Winsor Newton will have something very similar, maybe permanent magenta, something like that. Really just use whatever color you want for your berries. And then I'm going to maybe highlight a few with this, they call it in MeiLang royal gold. How about that for a name? And I'll do some lighter values. Remember, always playing with your values, dark and light values, so you have that interest, especially in something like these berries, where some berries are in the background. That will make a big difference. If I paint all of these berries, hopefully you can see those, the same color, it's going to be really boring. So that can make a big difference there. Okay, wet my brush, 3, 4, 5, and let's pick up my, let's see here. I want to pick up my, let's get the color chart here. I want to use that dark magenta is what I'm looking for. So the dark magenta is the third one over. So that's this one here, because I really liked that color. And that's where these come in so handy. So if I'm like, gosh, I created that color, can't remember how I made it, I can refer back to this color board. And I can see I added dark magenta, royal gold, and I came up with this color. So that's the kind of value for me in these, is when I create a color I like, I can go back and I know exactly how I created it. Okay. Pick up, let's see here. 1, 2, 3. So this is the dark magenta. I'm going to go ahead and put that, making sure, by the way, you're loading your brush on the side. You're not going in with the tip of your brush, because you're going to ruin your tip. And in these watercolors, we want to make sure we really preserve the integrity of those tips, so we can get those fine lines. Once you smash or mash your tip, you kind of lose that fine point. All right, putting a little on my palette here. Now, as you can see, as far as water control, that is really thick. I'm going to add a little bit more water. I want it to move. That's the consistency I like. To start with anyway, you can always add more water or more pigment, but I always like to start with my lighter value, just meaning there's more water, and then you can always darken it. So I tap off on the side. If you're not sure, you might have too much water, you can always tap on your towel and look at all that water that came off. That will keep you, that would have been big puddles and drips on my paper. So let's go in. I'm going to somewhat use the tip of my brush, but widening, putting a little bit of pressure to use almost the side of my brush. Now, I don't know if you can see that, but I've still got quite a bit of water there. So I'm just going to dab off. Look at that. See, there's a lot of water there. And I can go in and pick some of that up. Just lift some of that liquid out. So you can see here how easy it is to get way too much water, get a big old puddle, and then you end up with kind of a hot mess, right? Let's paint a few of these berries, and I'll put this little worksheet in my Etsy downloads. I'll give you all these little drawings, put the colors I used in case you want to try and recreate this and come back to the video. They're only $5 and I think they're pretty useful. There we go. Okay, before that dries, I'm going to go in and just wash and rinse my brush. And I'm going to pick up now some of that beautiful royal gold that I had here. So let's grab a tiny bit of that. Again, loading the side of my brush, not going in. If you have little holes in your paints, that means you're going in with the tip. And now I'm just going to tap in, and look at that, how pretty. Now this one dried a bit, so it's not spreading as much, but I really like, that's what I love about watercolors, is you can get that beautiful blend. And then let's go in and pick up just a little bit more of that. And go into a couple others. Look at how pretty that is. That gold just worked right in there. Now I want to make sure I get some different values of that color. I'm dabbing off my brush so that it gets rid of some of that water. And I might even go in and just pick up a little bit darker value there for one of these. So let's go into this one. That one's probably going to be lighter. So see the different values, because this one doesn't have as much water. It's mostly pigment. But now watch, wash and rinse your brush, get rid of that excess water. And I might even tap off here. And then I'm going to go in and just feather out that edge. Just like that. And look how beautiful that contrast is, because this is darker than these. All right? That creates a lot of fun interest. Now I might even go in and add a little bit of that bronzy color. Play with all your metallics. And there we go, wash and rinse. And maybe add a tiny bit more of my paint to get it to blend with that gold. There we go. So pretty, love it. Okay, I think because this berry is in front of that one, what you want to really stand out, you want to make sure you use a darker value. So I'm going to, oops, I picked up the wrong one there. So I'm going to go in with a darker value because this one is in front. The farther away things get, as far as perspective, they get grayer, they get more faded. So that's such a great little technique or tool to remember. If you want to create that depth, just play with the values of your elements. So I'm going to go in one here, like that, wash, rinse. Always making sure you rinse. You know your brush is rinsed if when you tap it off on your towel or your paper towel, it's clear. There's no color there. So I might even this time maybe not use a metallic. I may use this yellow ochre, like that. And just letting them blend together. So I want to play with all these different colors. So my brush is not leaving any color. Be careful with that red because that red can really be vibrant. Now I'm going to go in again, pick up a little bit of that red, but I've got it somewhat watered down here. And there you go. I didn't add any metallic on that one. So you really can just go through and do all of these like that. Now, if I was just painting this on my own, I'd probably work much quicker. And what I would do is also go into these berries with the green stems so that I get a little bit of a bleed. I'm going to water that down a bit into the berries with the green. I love doing that. I think it's so pretty, but because these are dry, I'm not going to get that. Maybe in these I might, because I just did those, but it's so pretty when those stems bleed into the color of the berry or your flower. So that's about how I would finish off these berries. I won't go through them all because I want to show you some of these other little elements that are fun. So I'm just continuing to paint a few of them, making sure my brush is clean. Maybe picking up a little bit of the metallic, painting into these. There you go. Just adding some fun. And now I'll show you what I mean by that stem bleeding in, because I think I just love green and brown stems bleeding into my flowers or whatever I'm painting here. So there you go. See how it bled in there? I love that look. It just doesn't look so cut off. It kind of looks like it's part of the same plant when the berries or the flowers blend in with the stems. So let's move to our little acorn here. Let me figure out, I was kind of thinking of doing, I know it sounds weird, but I like to think out of the box, a bluish acorn in here on the nut part. So let's kind of play with that. I'm going to go in first with in MeiLiang, this is yellow sienna, which I really like. It's this beautiful orangey color, kind of orangey brown color. It's very warm. I actually used it on my color board here, and I mixed it with gold, and look how beautiful. I mixed it with the bronze here, and so pretty. I love it. So let's get that on here, and then let's go into this little cap on our acorn. I'm always going in and starting with my tip, but then I'm using the side of my brush so that I can get a wider stroke. Now notice here also what I'm doing. I'm leaving some white space. That's kind of intuitive for me, but look at how much more interesting that is than if I just painted it all the same color. Now before that dries, I want to go in and add some depth, some darkness. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my paints, and I'm going to pick up, I believe they refer to this as Van Dyke brown. By the way, too, always have a little sheet to look at your colors and see what type of color you're putting. Oops, just went into the wrong one. And kind of test out which color you're putting in there. And then while this is wet, although it kind of dried already, is I'm just going to go in and randomly add some color on the sides so that it looks like it's darkening with some shadows as it goes around the side. And then the white spaces I left are more in the middle. Now, if I wanted to blend this out a little bit, I just wash and rinsed my brush. And I'm just helping it a little bit, just using the tip of my brush and kind of pulling and feathering. Just the lightest touch with my brush. So look at how beautiful that is. Wash and rinse my brush, and let's go ahead and go into our little nut here, which I usually do my acorns, I use a little bit more of a reddish color for the nut part. So let's see, let's try, let me see what color I want to try here. I think I'm going to go into the sienna. Let's see what color that is. Yeah, that's got an awful lot more orange in it. It's kind of like this, but this has more yellow in it. It's called yellow sienna. So, oops, just went into the wrong color. Wash and rinse my brush. This is the one I want. So see, that has a lot more red in it. They're both warm colors because they contain the warm undertones of yellows, oranges, which are warm. But this one has a little bit more reddish in it. It's more towards the red. This one's more towards the yellow. They're both sienna bases. I'm going to go in here again using the tip of my brush, spreading it out a bit so I can cover more area. Now I'm leaving a little bit of white space at the top there because I don't want to touch this or it'll all spread together. And then see how I'm leaving some white space at the bottom too, just for interest and to show maybe kind of like a highlight. I actually really meant to leave a highlight in the middle. So what I can do is wash and rinse my brush and I can lift, just place my, like that. And look at that. I've created this beautiful highlight that makes it look round. So wash and rinse my brush. I'll go in. Now here's where I wanted to just play and try maybe a tiny bit of blue. Let's see. Let's try this one. Let me get you the color for MeiLang. Let me see what color it is first. Ooh, that's a little too blue. Yeah, I kind of like that one better. This is where your little scrap papers are so useful. And what I think I'll actually even do is just mix it a little bit. So this could be cerulean, it could be turquoise in your Winsor Newton. So I've darkened that. And let's just, now this might have dried, touch into the edges there. And now I can go up into the top because the little cap has dried. And look how beautiful. Wash and rinse my brush. And just with a damp brush, I'm just kind of feathering that out. So look at the dimension in there because I've used these dark colors around the edges. It really gives that feeling that the acorn is round. There you go. All right, now I'll show you what it would look like if this will still blend to going into my olive green. That's just kind of my go-to green I use. You may have a favorite green. And maybe even mix it with a little bit of that brown. And using the tip of my brush, going into that. Now what I would really prefer is if I had done that when it was wet, because I like that spread. So what I'll do is wash and rinse my brush and I'll just help it along a little bit. There we go. So it kind of spreads into there. Just tapping in with a tiny bit more. So look how beautiful that is. Okay, my third little flower I'd like to do here, not really a flower, is these fun little, I don't even know what you call them. They're kind of little ferny type things. That's not a word, I just made that up. And I'm just using the tip of my brush. So I've got, let's see, I want to use this reddish color. And we'll use a variety of colors, but point. Now while that's wet, I want to quickly go into maybe my green, point press, point press. These are just little filler leaves you can use. And making sure you vary the size. So there may be small ones, there may be larger ones, darker ones, play with the values. And these are just easy little filler leaves. You can add these in any direction. You can add these anywhere in your painting. If you feel like you have a little bare spot, add a couple of these in. Just like that. They're really fun. And I'm just literally doing a little dab. You could even add in maybe some of these colors. Look how fun that is. Beautiful, isn't it? That would make a beautiful little filler leaf. And they're very easy. All right, so let's wash and rinse our brush. Let's see, what should we go to now? Those are more acorns. Let's do this. So I'm going to go in, let's see, what other color can we use? Back to my swatch here. How about if we make this one, we use the Cad Red, which has a little bit more orange. In Winsor Newton, alizarin crimson would be really beautiful here. And then that royal gold, and look at this beautiful orangey gold. That would be really pretty for some fall leaves. Okay, so let me find my Cad Red. Let's see here. Oops, wrong one. I believe Cad Red, let me look. It's going to be this one. Okay, so the Cad Red in MeiLiang has an awful lot of oranginess in it, which means it goes really well with these, because remember, those had a lot of orange in them. So it's considered a warm color because it's on the warm side of the color wheel. If it had some of these undertones of blue, it would be on the cooler side. Always remember them because the warm side is more reflective of the sun colors, and the cool side is more reflective of colors you'd find in the ocean, greens and turquoises and blues and purples. The warm side is more red violets and reds and oranges and your yellows. So that's just kind of how I remember warm and cool. I know some of you have asked me, how do I determine if it's warm or cool? That's kind of what I do. So let's go in and create this stem. I'm just using the tip of my brush. This is where warm-ups are so important. Practice using the tip of your brush so you know when it comes to, oh, I need to do a thin branch line, you just automatically have that muscle memory and you can go right in and do that. And now I'll go in, try not to put my hand in that, point press. Oops, that didn't come out. Point press. There we go. Point press. Now, while that's wet, I'll pick up some of that Cad Red and see if I can touch in here. Yeah, there we go. And get that to spread. Now, one thing I will tell you is when you're using a metallic by itself, it's not quite as spreadable as maybe watercolors are. So that's why I really tend to mix them with my watercolor paint, because I feel like it flows a little bit more. So let's just do that again. This time I mixed the metallic with my Cad Orange. So let's see what that does. Point, press, point, like that. Really pretty. Let's use a little bit of gold in there. Let's pick up maybe some of our ochre, yellow ochre, which is the same in Winsor Newton. That can be a really intense color, by the way, so kind of be careful. Water that down a bit. And point, press, point, press. So I just did 2 C curves. I put them together. Now let's go in with a little bit of our green. See what that does. That could be pretty. There we go. And point press. That's the left side of my C curve. Now the right side, point press. Something like that. Just rinsing off my brush a bit so I can get a lighter value. Point press. Now that's really light, so I'm going to darken that a bit. Point press, point press. There you go. Point press, point press. Now if you notice, if you can see in there, look at how beautiful. This is what I love. I don't always mix my colors fully on my palette. What I'll do a lot of times is go into, let me show you. So I'm going to pick up some of this olive green and let's make a stem here. And now what I'll do is go in and pick up maybe some of that green. And then I'm going to dip into, but not mix around, some of this orange. So now I've got both colors on my brush. Point, press. And if you don't mix them, you'll get a really beautiful blend, like here, where you've got kind of orange, red, gold. You kind of have everything in there. See that? Isn't that beautiful? Point, press. Look at that. So pretty. Point, press. I just love that look. So again, what I did is went into my green, then I dipped it into that orange, not mixing it around. Point, press, point, press, and look at the beautiful blends I get on my paper. So I'm not creating those in my palette. I'm letting them mix on the paper, and I just think that's so beautiful. Here's another one. We'll do one more here. So there's a stem. Point, press. Just so pretty. I love that. So there's a few filler flowers. I hope you kind of liked those. I'm going to go in and just finish this here with some more of my paint. And again, I'll just be, so this one I'm going to make darker. There you can see here. And that's going to create that depth. So those are darker ones are popping out in front of you. Just like that. Now, if I was to go in here and touch this with the green, let me get some of that. It will blend into this little berry, which I love. Using the tip of my brush. Now that one's kind of darker. So it's hard to see on camera here, but that little stem is blending into my flower. So again, using the different values, more water here, less water, more pigment here. I also blended in with some of my gold paint and leaving these white spaces. Just get used to leaving those. You can always add in. All right, so that's about it. I will link all my products and supplies for you, and have fun with this. Practice some of these, always practicing your warm-ups. I can make this sheet for you and put it on Etsy if that's something that interests you. They're $5. You download them right away. And I find them really helpful because you have something to look at. I also give you an image of the original so you can kind of look at it and see where I put the different colors. And I think that's it. Thank you so much, everybody. Have fun with this. Bye.